Microsoft's Windows or Mac OS X, or now that the iPhone OS, that are most distinctly owned by someone. And those someones don't always have the same values of openness and sharing that we take for granted in the open source community and that we've taken for granted in the web for the last 15 years. So my question is, do we want anyone to own it? And if we don't, we better get busy. Because the trends are telling me that we're well down the path to a small number of big companies owning our future. So I wrote a blog post last year called The War for the Web, in which I started to tease out some of the ways that I saw companies starting to make their chess moves against each other and assert their control over one or another aspect of this internet operating system, making a statement to developers of, you can go here, you can't go here. You know, and I've used for years, I first used this image back in 2003 in my talk, The Open Source Paradigm Shift, when I was talking about the kinds of platforms that we want to see on the web. And it's really two alternative models of operating systems. And the one on the right is a routing map of the internet. And if you know anything about the internet, you know that nobody owns it. You know that anybody can add a new site, and somehow they magically connect. And this is almost an organic thing. It looks like the map of neurons in the brain. And then there's this other model of platforms and operating systems, which is summed up by Tolkien's one ring to rule them all. Right? We've seen that before, and not just in the Lord of the Rings movie. We've seen the idea that a platform can be a tool of control. And so I ask you, do you want one company, or even two or three companies, to control the future of the web? Or do we want the web to stay as it has been, a platform that belongs to no one, and because it belongs to no one, belongs to everyone? So my latest post on this is called State of the Internet Operating System. I'm not going to go into it in detail here, but I would urge you to read it. I talk about some of the same ideas that I'm talking about here, that we are building a data-driven operating system. In part two, which I haven't yet published, I'm working on an eye chart here, which you probably can't really make out, but it's kind of like a ranking of who owns what. And you know, you can kind of see that I've got some of the chief contenders up at the top: Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and then I have this column called Other. And what's really exciting to me is that the column called Other, that is, all the rest of us, actually has more of the dark dots, the ones that says, yeah, we've got something really there, than any of the individual competitors. So there's more resource out there in our collaborative community, if we can figure out how to bring it to bear. You know, so the categories are things like infrastructure as a service, storage, computation, you know, hosted software as a service apps, media access, monetization, location, calendaring, scheduling, social graph, communications, sensor management, mobile device OSs, mobile device hardware, and you know, web browser. There may be other categories as well. But you can kind of see that we collectively have a lot of power there. And, but there is a real risk. At the first level of this internet operating system is what people generally refer to as cloud computing. They think of this infrastructure as a service, which is characterized most clearly by Amazon Web Services, but also by Google App Engine and Microsoft Azure and various compatible platforms. But there's a really important concept tied up in cloud computing. It's a big enabler. I mean, AWS has been this enormous boon for developers because you can start easily and you can scale up an app using somebody else's infrastructure at much lower cost. But the warning signs of the future that this could lead to, in the absence of sufficient competition, in the absence of sufficient thought about what kind of architecture we need to keep freedom alive, is wrapped up in a statement that I heard from a woman who was at the time Microsoft's VP of operations for Windows Live, Deborah Sharpathy, and she said, in the future, being a developer on someone's platform will mean being hosted on their infrastructure. Okay, and that you know, we went on to talk. This was at a O'Reilly Radar briefing that we did up at OSCON. We went on to talk about the idea that, you know, the big platform providers will be able to deliver power more cheaply. They'll be able to deliver, you know, server space more cheaply, and of course, with that power comes leverage or